Confusion reigns amongst the peloton. Yesterday, the issue was that the finish line after the roundabout at the end was only 80 metres away from the final exit. It was supposed to be 300 odd metres, so teams should have been able to reassemble themselves. Didn't happen, and so we had an unexpected finisher with Van Lerberger for Topsport Vlaanderen, despite the fact that we'd teed him up as a potential on the day. Danny Bennati took it on the line, but a lot of teams upset, not least Cofidis and Nasser Bouhanni. Now, today was supposed to be a day where the likes of Bouhanni could cope. There's only a Category 3 climb after the end of a long run through the day. Comes late on, you go over the top of it, several little peaks on a plateau, and then come down into Cordoba. But it's not like that, no. Categorized 3 shouldn't include ramps of 12%, and we've got plenty of those. And if you take the midsection of the climb that does face them, it's a 7% average at the very, very least. A little bit of a double check. Looks like a little bit of moisture on the road for our 4 men in the breakaway. Anyway, it's going to be a bit of a conundrum today. It's going to be hard for the teams to decide who is going to be their principal rider. I think the penny might finally have dropped that you really do need to see the course first, especially after yesterday. And so it's a difficult one to call, Matt Stevens.
It certainly is. I mean, the litmus test will be seeing how the riders tackle the climb, seeing which teams take it up. At the moment, the mantle in relation to chasing this break, or at least keeping them, you know, within catching distance, as it were, has been taken up by Tinkoff Saxo, because, of course, they have the red leader's jersey on the shoulders of Danny Bennati. Great win by him yesterday. Very, very exciting sprint indeed. But interestingly, Team Sky are there. And again, we've managed to study this climb. Haven't managed to find much information about when it's been used in races before. But again, very shallow start, and then we've got 5 kilometres averaging at that 7.5%. But as you mentioned, Carlton, with sections of 10 and 12%. But then more significantly, arguably, is a rolling plateau that, again, after the climb, it rolls for about 7 kilometres, and then there's another mini climb within that of 7% as well, with 9% pitches before the drop into the finish. So it should be one definitely for the punchers. I think we'll definitely see a drastically reduced peloton coming into the finish.
So they're making the turn. They will be out into the countryside again. It's a very sinuous climb, by the way, technical descent as well, back down into Cordoba. So we have 4 riders up the road. We've got Ruben van Poels from Topsport Vlaanderen, just on the right-hand side of your screen. Nice to see them after Van Lerberger's efforts yesterday. Poels is up the road, 21 years of age. Under 23 individual time trial champion of Belgium, by the way, so he can set a pace. Good man to have in a break. Reinier Ernig is also here from Rompot. We have Pablo Torres from Burgos and Aitor Gonzalez from Euskadi Basque Country, Murias. They're hopeful. Hit and hope, it's the only way. Nice, as you can see, no diminution in the pace today at all. It's been very, very quick. In fact, Matt, they were straight out of the blocks this morning, were they not? And it was very pacey opening hour.
It really was. It was 44.6 kilometres an hour. They actually covered 44.6 kilometres in the first hour. Is another way to look at it. But no, extremely fast start. We saw at the top of the programme some highlights of how attacking the first part of the race was. Extremely flat roads when you, well, actually there was a couple of little digs before in the first 15 Ks, and then essentially, save for a couple of road bridges, it's been essentially flat as a pancake all the way through. The only, I don't know, punctuation mark apart from the feed zone was the hotspot sprint, which was taken by Torres. He's the rider, the Spanish rider riding for the Burgos team, just on the front of this group on the left-hand side at the moment. But a very, very fast start. But the lead, we saw the lead yesterday of the breakaway go out to about 7 minutes. That hasn't happened today. I think it maxed out at about 3 minutes 45 seconds. But with Tinkoff and with Team Sky in control. But I think it's worth looking back. We've got Nikolai Trusov on the front, a big powerhouse riding for Tinkoff Saxo. Yesterday's victory for Danny Bennati, even more significant for me, because with 10 Ks to go, and we saw how fast it was, he punctured, was out the back, Trusov took him back up to the front, and he still put off the stage victory. Then underlines the confidence and form that Bennati has got at the moment. Great to see.
Well, Bennati apparently was actually not the chosen son until the very last, and I think then when it all kicked off and they realised maybe an old head is what you need, and Bennati certainly designed his way to the fore on very difficult circumstances, especially when the finish line was a lot closer to the final roundabout, and it was one roundabout that frankly did for Nasser Bouhanni, who got it very wrong. They could get it wrong today though, the teams, because again we've got a categorized 3 climb it isn't a categorized 3. I think in many other races it would possibly be a category 1, and maybe even higher than that on on some of the Asian races. Believe me, 12%, and I think nudging just below 10 for about 7 Ks, or 4 or 5 Ks I should say, of the opening 4 or 5 Ks of the climb. It's very nasty, and then we get to a plateau which I think possibly brings down the general percentage of the climb. But that still rolls, and that's still got some real kickers of 9% as well before we get onto our technical descent. So these guys, very, very brave up the road. We'll go through our breakaway in a few moments' time. Sky alive to the fact that today is going to be one for the punchers. They are a team that are known to have done their homework. So you open your mind up as to what their possibilities are. At the top of the day, you possibly would have thought, oh, category 3, Ben Swift, he's going to do a cheeky one. But then you start thinking, well, maybe Wout Poels himself, Vasyl Kirienka, could possibly take on this climb and then time trial his way in. Nico Roche is not averse as well, the Irishman, for going for this sort of effort. It's just a question of where they are fitness-wise in their season. Roche at the nose of the Sky part of this chase down at the moment, so possibly he's working for others. "40 kilometres to go. It's under 2 minutes now, and the hurry up, Matt, is because our climb is rapidly approaching."
It is. We should be at the foot of the climb in around at 12 kilometres time. If you can just look ahead, you can just see that range of hills looming in the background. Earlier on the day, there were concerns, well, not concerns, it was raining on the climb and in the finish at Cordoba, and it was a miserly 7 degrees, so pretty chilly indeed. Thankfully things are a little bit better, and again the descent, well, there's quite a few tortuous hairpins on the climb itself, and the descent, the first part of the descent, is quite technical before the run into the finish. So you've not only got to have your got to be climbing well, but you've got to have your wits about you, and you've got to be able to descend. But I think the most interesting part, aside from the climb itself, is this plateau, which pitches and falls quite severely. So it will suit the punchers. We've mentioned Philippe Gilbert. He's already had a win in the Classic Almira just a few days ago, so he's riding really well. First race of the year, of course, well, for TJ Van Garderen. He's never done this race at all. He thinks he's riding particularly well. I mean, BMC got a really good squad. Van Garderen, Philippe Gilbert, Sammy Sanchez, Ben Hermans. He can ride pretty well on the smaller climbs too, as well as Caruso, Bookwalter and Darwin Atapuma. But again, Sky have got a great squad. And Tinkoff, Rafa Majka, Roman Kreuziger as well. So this should be extremely exciting.
Well, let's check out what we're being offered up as today's profile, shall we? Now, it's an interesting one. 177.2. We don't believe it. We believe that today is 186.3. This is our conundrum, frankly, because it doesn't show the flat run into Cordoba, and we're going into town unless they have moved the finish line. 39 Ks to the finish, it says. We'll be able to tell you once we get to our climb, because then we'll know how far to go. I think there's a graphical error there, and I think that today is longer than is being declared on that graphic, but that the ticker is right. My goodness. Well, if we're having trouble, can you imagine what the teams are going through? Yes. They're seeing the same feed as us as well, so confusion reigns, but we will do our best to pick the meatballs out of the pasta. Anyway, here we go. Minute and 37 with 38.3 to go. These are our breakaway men. It's nice to see them at last. Renier Oenig, there he is in the orange for Team Rompot Orangi Peloton. He's been with 9 teams in his career. He's 32 years of age. He's very much a journeyman, but he was third in the World Ports Classics a couple of years ago. That was a shining beacon within a career where he's generally had H for helper written next to his name. We have Ruben Poels of Top Sport Vlaanderen. He's at the back, just rolling through here in the blue and white. They had a great result yesterday with Bert van Lerberger, really motivated, as Top Sport are. The races where they can measure themselves against top-class Pro Conti and World Tour teams, they really go for it. And this chap, Poels, is the under-23 individual time trial champion of Belgium, so you don't really want him to go that far up the road because he can engage a scary tempo. Pablo Torres of Burgos BH was one of the other guys. He's in a sort of a black sash across a white-ish jersey. 28 years of age, the Spaniard, 6th in the GC of the Tour of China a couple of years ago, but he was 5th significantly in the Comunidad of Madrid. Now that community race, there he is at the back, is very well attended, particularly by Spanish riders, and so watch out for Torres as well. It may well be that today was a target day for him, and they need to get in the break. We'll see how he functions once the road starts to kick up. And finally, Euskadi in that green. It's a sort of a day-glow green, and frankly, at distance, when the colour balance is not quite right, it can get confused with Tinkoff, it can get confused with a few other teams as well, including Southeast, who've gone a bit fluoro. But no, it is Euskadi, and it's Aitor Gonzalez, 25 years of age, and he's busy, as was Imanol Estevez yesterday for that team. So given a chance, they're going to give it a go. As you can see, it's keep your fluids up on a dull day with 37 Ks to go, 1:26. Chance of a catch, I think red hot, possibly on the opening climb. Still not sure about the Palmares of these guys and whether they've got the legs to get up it.
It's going to be tough for them to stay away on this climb. They're still working really well. We saw them. We saw it was a very exciting finish. I think the break was caught with only about 2 kilometres to go. We thought that the bunch were going to make a bit of a miscalculation, but again, the lead is tumbling down at the moment. And interestingly, since we've been on there, it's been one rider on the front, Nikolai Trusov of Tinkoff Saxo, is pretty much reeling these guys in on his own, with Sky sat just behind. I think we're going to see Team Sky take it up on this particular climb.
There we go. Nasty weather. I've got a feeling we might have a cloud burst a little bit later on. Let's hope it's not on the descent, which is quite a tricky one. Entire Eurosport family together, and you can see the pace has been extremely high. It's 47 kilometers per hour. It's not really dropped out of the mid-40s, to be honest. And in fact, you can see Nicolas Roche as well, just starting to plop the old cheeks up as he goes for it. Movistar very interested today, and I'm not surprised. Alejandro Valverde for me is absolutely prime for this one. But likewise, some old names to conjure with, and maybe some turning back the clock. I'm not talking Philippe Gilbert, he's very much in the zone, but Matt, we were talking before we came on air about Sylvain Chavanel's chances today, and I think Direct Energy, they've looked lively, haven't they? Why not?
Well, it's sad they've obviously lost their sprinter, Coquard, got a broken shoulder blade while he's out on his TT bike. So a big shame. It's quite a nasty injury, but and they've had a great start to the year. I think they've had around between 7 and 9 wins this year. I'm sure somebody on Twitter will correct me, but they've had a great season so far. Chavanel has also had a win, and this is, I mean, you've got to look back a little bit to Chavanel in his pomp, and this would be the sort of terrain that he would absolutely revel in. Clearly there's great morale within the new French squad. We'll see how he goes, but again, he's going to be definitely up against it. We know Alejandro Valverde. Look back 2 years to this race, absolutely dominated it. I think he won 2 out of the 4 stages, or 3 stages even. A really dominant display, and Valverde, as we know, can ride on all sorts of terrain. He's the reigning Spanish road champion, definitely dangerous, but again, BMC, even Trek Factory Racing, Volker Moliber also in the mix. So, yeah, lots of options for different teams. I
think we're going to see some big names coming to the fore. Valverde actually won this event, don't forget, this race in 2012, 13 and 14, so he kind of feels that he owns it. He lent it, if you like, to Froome and Contador, who took pieces out of each other in the race last year, neither of whom have decided to select this as part of their build-up for the season. Nonetheless, it's fantastic, and a great, very, very strong team has been posted by Team Sky. You've got Vasil Kirienka, you've got Nicolas Roche, you saw on those a wee while ago. Wout Poels is out-and-out favourite for the title within that team, but they've got Nieve, who can climb, as you know, Christian Nace. Gianni Moscon as well, Ben Swift, who many penciled in as the boy today, but I don't know, why not someone like Kirienka? He's taking a big turn, but how much of a turn he'll take when it comes to the pitches that we're about to have as we head towards Cordoba. We'll then loop away, head up into the hills, 12%, don't forget, extending over 5 kilometres, the toughest part of the climb. It's actually given us a run of 14 beyond the actual categorized climb itself, and then we come down and back into town. Sorry if that graphic earlier on confused you. It confused us as well. We believe today's distance is 186, but we'll know when we get to the peak, because then we'll back count it for you and we'll have a definitive answer. So our run-in today, at the moment, it's a bit of a mystery, but we do know there's a sinuous descent and we expect it possibly to be a select group that will engage in the sprint. And so don't be surprised if you find Gilbert there, the likes of Valverde, and maybe some others, you know, some of the quick men who managed to get up there. It looks like Cofidis still have belief as others join the fun.
Yeah, well, Team Lotto and a Jumbo on the left-hand side. They've got Wilco Kelderman, Steven Kruijswijk, who could go well on a day like this. Definitely lots of teams making sure their climbers are well positioned for the bottom of this climb.
Well, they're mobbed. They realise the danger, and this is because of a transition. We're going to leave a big wide open highway where, as you can see, you can go 20 wide if you wish. Goodness me, madam, she's heading to the airport.
That was a bit close, wasn't it?
It was a bit close. I think somebody shouted oi from the peloton. You see Bernardi with the red leader's jersey. He's still got his Tinkoff yellow splat advertising upon his back to help you define him from the other teams in red. Nice this year, just take a brief departure, Matt, that so many teams have moved away from looking similar to each other. It's almost like they deliberately did unique designs, and it's a plethora of colour.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few teams have changed the subtle design of their jerseys. There's a few teams with the traditional colours. Fluoro still plays its part. We've obviously got Southeast. We've already talked about the Euskadi team, just there sitting in third position with Aitor Gonzalez. But no, teams seem, it looks like, well, one of the Fluor riders, it looks particularly, one of the riders from Tinkoff Saxe has gone the wrong way around, is now stuck in the wind on the other carriageway.
I think it's southeast Venezuela, actually, but we'll have a look and see how much grey they've got on. We're about to have a coming together. The radio will say all together, race radio that is, and these guys, they've done a decent job. It's been a pacey day for them. They certainly found out where they are in terms of their own form, have they not?
They certainly have. I mean, they've had a hard day out in front, extremely fast start to the day. Now they've been mobbed up. Look, they will just see on the left-hand side. Who is that rider?
My goodness.
Just like a few
How many alternatives are there here? And
taking, it's like a cyclocross.
That was terribly badly marshalled, to be honest. They should have been guided through, and maybe alternative cheeky ones barriered off. There's a security bike there that looked very, very worried. So you do go from very, very wide to reasonably narrow, as you can see. It does get a little bit narrower as well as we go up the climb. But that's why they were mobbing the road. They all wanted a good face into this transition, and now we start to think about our climb.
It won't be long before we hit the bottom of the climb. It's Nico Roach just on the front. Again, just bedding himself in, coming back from injury. Remember that double spider bite, one in Australia, that waylaid his plans, but he's coming back into form. Again, he's sat on the front now, so he won't be figuring in the final, but what he will do is try and tee things up, try and set quite a hard pace. And again, just behind him is the world time trial champion, Vasil Kirienka. You can just see the climb looming in the background, and there's some, looks like there's a few storm clouds overhead as well. Beautiful.
The road does suddenly get even narrower, as you can see, as an option off the roundabout. So only about 4 or 5 meters wide at a maximum. And we're heading for the hills with 29.1 to go. I am very much looking forward to this climb. Let's detail it, shall we, Matt? There's a sort of a flat-ish approach. Still think that's graphics wrong, and we're going to go longer than that, 186 today with a flat runoff afterwards. So forget that graphic. I think that's going to lead you astray. By the time we get to the top, when we get to our category climb, that one will have a definitive distance for you today, but we believe graphically we're being led somewhere we shouldn't. So it is Nico Roche that's doing his job. What's he facing?
Well, he's facing, I think, that just on the early part of the climb, only a gradual gradient, 1.8%, and then after a kilometre or so, the gradient really starts to bite. The second kilometre averages at 6.6%, then kicks up to 5.8, then 7.9 midway through, and that's where we start to go around some of the narrow hairpin bends, and then we have gradients of 12% and 10% before it flattens out slightly at 6.7 over the top. But then, significantly, we have this rolling plateau which provides an opportunity, another 8 or 9 kilometres down for another 1.1 kilometre climb, non-categorised at 9%, so that could be extremely significant.
It's going to be fun for us, and it potentially is going to be a bit of a heartbreaker for some of these riders. It's, as you can see, a measured approach by some. Igor Boev is clearly not one of those. Medina Atzara, it has a whiff of an ossuary about it. One can only assume that there's some bones buried deep nearby, but it's part of that magnificent. A Medina, of course, it has an Islamic feeling to it. And of course, much of Spain was Moorish for quite a while. I'm not talking about the tapas.
Although that is correct.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed it is. 28.2. Nonetheless, here comes your kick. We've got a long way to go. I think we're right. I think this is long with a flat runoff at the end of a long descent. But they're biting into it. They're taking chunks out of this, and it is starting to upset a few. Lotto already moving into space. Tosh van der Sande today, I think possibly more like de Klerk or Van den Dert, one of them.
That's Tim Wellens in the centre for Lotto. We know how good a climber he is. Great climber. And we can just see TJ Van Garderen mistakenly earlier on said it was his first race. I mean, it's his first stage race of the year. He's already had a top 7 or 7th place in Almere, which was won by his teammate Philippe Gilbert. He's got himself into good position. He feels very fresh after that period of time off when he crashed in the Tour de France, but comes into this race feeling good and wants to try and do something. But already, Colton, a few riders detached because of the pace. And here we start this series of turns. Sky still in the front, and it's still Nico Roche.
That was Borut Bozic, one of the lead-out team, the train for Nasser Bouhanni, who's looking a bit second-hand already. And Sky have put the hammer down very, very early. They were quick on the approach. They wanted a safe entry into the climb. They've got exactly that. And now they're stretching their legs as the percentages kick up. Well, hairpins have taken a few prisoners already, as you can see. Those who've done their driving duties on the nose have now been led off. Tokubo of Matrix Power Tag, one of those is just going backwards. 27.6 to go. So, Matt, I believe we have got the longer distance as we had assumed.
Yeah, we hit the top, when the climb is categorised, we hit the top at 22.9. So the graphic is correct in terms of what we see on the screen, but the actual map is incorrect. They do drop off the climb before a short flat section, which isn't represented in the map that we've seen.
There we are. None too pleased. We had a late puncture yesterday, incidentally, by Bernati himself. Managed to get the change with 10 to go and get back in. That was Hernandez Martinez, Martin Hernandez, I beg your pardon, of Burgos, who was suffering a puncture there just on the approach. 27.3 to go then. Sky, this is them, I think, badging themselves up as hard men for this event. They've come here with a proper team. Likewise, BMC with TJ Van Garderen, and of course, Philippe Gilbert. Sammy Sanchez as well. Why not him today for the men in black and red? We'll see. Team Lotto Jumbo, well, as you can see, something extra required for some of their quicker men who are finding themselves found out today. That's Martin Cialinghi, by the way, of Lotto Jumbo in company further down. 27.1 to go. This is real, isn't it? It's
really starting to stretch out. Impressed by the work rate of Nico Roche, but we know how classy that bike rider is. Spent a long time on the front now, and look at the way the bunch is now fracturing. Riders are dropping up as the gradient pitches. We're about a third of the way up the climb now, and it gets increasingly more difficult. A great aerial view there. Look at the face of Nico Roche, pressing on for as long as he can. Still with the world time trial champion Kirienka on his wheel, and then a Walt Pauls in third.
Valverde's here with Movistar, you can see, and Valverde is actually doing most of the driving, most of the pushing on. Rafa Majka's boys, Tinkoff Saxo, also very much in the frame, and every single time they take one of these focused hairpins, which can crank up to 12% on the switch. Every time they do that, questions are asked, and some have the answers. You know, Dimension Data have had their fun, have they not, at the top of this season? They haven't sent their strongest team, but they clearly don't want to miss out.
Well, they're not afraid to attack. I mean, a great start to the year. We've seen Cav have wins. We've seen Edvald Bersenhagen have a lot of bad luck, but also a couple of wins. They really have started the year with a bang, and they're on the attack at the moment. Still quite a few riders in contention. This is where the road levels a little bit, but an absolutely wonderful view there of the bunch. And here's that attack just up the inside. Lovely slow motion replay of the acceleration.
Yeah, and no response from Team Sky as well. And it's a team that quite often is Switzoff who's gone for it. Yeah, I think it is Switzo.
Team Sky, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And they were sort of saying, well, go on, but you know what we'll do? We'll just hang back. This is Wanty that are bridging over as well. Wanty Group Gobert, I believe that also they've been very, very brave of late. Quite happy to lay themselves down. In fact, yesterday they were busy in the break, and it was nice to see their man Bonnier doing such a good job as part of the break. In fact, we thought there was a possibility of them going all the way yesterday. Didn't quite happen for them. So you're looking at the head of the race right now. as Sky are wont to do, they hold their tempo, and it's something that's being copied by other teams now, and just waiting for people to burn themselves out further up the road. But you've got to be careful with Svitsov, have you not?
Definitely. I mean, if you think about how many years Konstantin Svitsov spent with, he was with High Road for a while, HTC, looked after Mark Cavendish, but he's also spent many hours on the front of the bunch for Team Sky. So for him to be given the freedom to attack must be quite liberating. Still Nico Roach on the front, turning that gear. Wout Poels, number 3, winner of the race last week in Valencia. Great win by him there. Still 4 or 5 Sky riders in the mix, but still quite a few riders there. But no, for Svitsov, it's interesting to see riders when they move teams, that the different sort of the different, I don't know, role that they play within the team. But Svitsov clearly has got a free hand and has opened up a fair lead at the moment. The rider from Wanty Group Goubert not able to get across the gap.
No, he can't. He's just fading, I'm afraid, and that's a bit of a heartbreaker when you set off after somebody and then just suddenly realise that despite going all in, essentially, it's just not good enough. But it's a quality rider, Svitsov, and there he is out front for now, and he's going to be posting a decent gap. He may well take the crest. Still got some way to go with 25.8 on the ticker. That we believe is correct, but the early graph that we saw, there is a flat run in to the line, and so you're going to have to be able to set a bit of a time trialing tempo as well as climb. It's one for the punchers today, and Philippe Gilbert is bound to be tempted, and BMC are starting to think about it. Don't rule out the likes of Sammy Sanchez as well on a day like this.
Yeah, well, Sammy Sanchez definitely there, the former Olympic road champion, of course. It looks like Darwin Atapuma for BMC in the black and white, just moved up the outside. I can also see Roman Kreuzer get in that fluo kit. And in about 3rd or 4th wheel for Tinkoff Saxo, one of the riders from Drone Pot also there. But this is a picture of the rider Svitsov out in front, looking very good. Still riding on the big ring, clearly pretty full of confidence. And it looks like he's going to get may get the neutral service car to tuck in behind, but he's opening up quite a good lead. He's still got about 2.5 kilometres to the top of the climb, but then it doesn't flatten out. It rolls for another 7 or 8 Ks.
I'm reading that we have got our runoff at the end after the descent, and in fact today is 186.3.
And if you look at the road surface here, we knew we had rain. It's damp. There is a technical finish. If there's a place to be on the climbs and the descent is out on your own, picking your own line, especially when you get little patches of wet, little patches of dry, when you see riders adapting and compensating, can be very difficult.
You get bits of sap as well, I'm afraid to tell you. Lots of eucalyptus trees here which smell absolutely lovely. Obviously if you're a koala bear, that's lunch, but we're a long way from down under at the moment. In fact, they're going up and over in a short while. Just looking and see who else is involved. There's Kreuziger, who's just picked it up for Tinkoff Saxo in the Dayglow yellow there, as you can see. A lot of options for a lot of teams, including IM Cycling. Jerome Coppel. We've been talking about Sylvain Chavanel as a potential today. Haven't really seen his team engaging with the climb, but he is up here.
Yeah, Chavanel is sat in about 7th or 8th position there in that new kit, the waspish kit, primarily yellow with elements of black on there. But he's looking pretty comfortable at the moment, but still sits. It'll be interesting to see what sort of gap he's got at the moment. And again, because the climb is so sinuous, all he's got to do is round one of these bends and he's out of sight, but still Team Sky setting the pace at the front.
Yeah, we were alluding to it a little bit earlier on, the method of not responding to attacks, but simply engaging the tempo of the day. Working it out mathematically, essentially, is what Sky has brought to cycling. Some say it's led to a little bit less drama in the mountains as other teams adopt the same kind of strategy, but it's damn effective, isn't it?
It's extremely effective, but one rider that knows that strategy so well is this rider out in front. He's made that stinging attack to get the gap, but he is the sort of rider, he has the attributes and the capacity to hold the kind of pace that his ex-colleagues behind are doing. So an interesting move. 20 seconds is the lead for Svitsov at the moment.
I think that this man, Konstantin Svitsov, has got a chance today. He's got 22 seconds, as you can see, and this is over a Sky team that he knows extremely well. He knew exactly how they would engage the climb and decided to attack them, knowing that they wouldn't form a counter, setting their own tempo. It could be a bit of inside knowledge for Svitsov, not necessarily about the climb itself, but knowing what he's got to do if he's going to, I guess, stick it to his old team. He's with Dimension Data. Brian Smith is a man whose hands have been rubbing together so often he doesn't wear gloves anymore. Yeah, mainly because the selection that he has made for his team has been outstanding. You've seen, of course, Mark Cavendish doing brilliant stuff in the Middle East. You've seen FL Bosenhagen still out there in Oman and taking a stage, and indeed the leader's jersey yesterday. Other great success dimension data have had, and why not Svitzer today? It's a team that's cock-a-hoop, and we'll see how they go. Valverde is mustering his troops around him for an attack, I'll be bound.
Yeah, possibly you can just see him well, riding just on the right-hand side in the dark blue kit. I mean, he is Spanish national champion, and normally a little bit more jersey space is given and assigned to the national stripes. But interestingly, this year Movistar have been quite, well, I'd say extremely conservative in their in their interpretation of what the national jersey is. I'll be perfectly honest with you, I'll nail my colours to the mast. To me, it's a little bit disappointing, but there we go. He's just got the red and yellow flashes and tipping to his sleeves, to his cuffs and his shorts, and just a little bit on the front of the jersey as well.
Yeah, if you're national champion, splat the flag.
Yeah.
British champion does it proper. I'm sitting next to one right now.
It's a long time ago, but yes, indeed, I was proud enough to wear that jersey once.
Yeah, so I remember I remember your mum's reaction at the at the line. There was lots of hugging.
There was lots of. It was in my old hometown.
Lots of handbags and woolly hats.
There was lots of joy. It was a good day.
Being thrown in the air. They just disappear from view underneath some of the wooded section, as you can see, and these are the others, as it were. Just looking at Fernandez from Matrix Power Tag, who's just trying to get back in here. I think they're giving him, probably the only pictures we've got actually at the moment. Solo Val from Burgos BH as well, and a few others as well have been in the engine room. That was Adrian Petit, who looks like he's been suffering. Could have had a decent run yesterday. And I guess if you just looked at the bald facts and thought, oh, category 3, maybe I can get over it and engage a sprint. Not going to be for Petit. Switzer, though, looks determined, doesn't he? He
certainly does. Really, really smooth. He's a great time trialist. As I said, I've said again, has spent many years on the front, so he'll have this real kind of reserve of endurance. He can ride at a very, very high threshold, putting out a lot of power. But you can just see by his face, although he's still very, very, he's got a lot of form on the bike, you can just see the amount of effort he's putting in. Quick glance over the shoulder to check the gap. We think he's, well, one of the riders from Caja Rural has been nudged off the road. Also number 43 there, that's Tosh van der Sande. That's the last thing. That's the last thing you want to happen on a climb. It really breaks your rhythm. Then you've got, of course, almost to put yourself back in the red to get back in contention. But Van der Sande, a very talented Belgian rider. It looks like he's just about to get back in contact.
There we are. KOM breaks it right now. So we've got a full distance today. We were right. It's 186.3. We have a sinuous descent and then a flat run in. Our apologies on behalf of the graphics providers from the organisers, which were in error. Well, at least we told you it was a possibility. So, well, that's good news, quite frankly. We're on the top of a plateau at the moment, but this has a few little roller coaster moments of its own.
It does. They're just going to roll over the top. They then have a descent of about 1 kilometre long, which pitches, well, it's at a minus, obviously, 3.4. Then there's a flat section before it pitches up again. Then it rolls down, so then they have about a 2 or 3 kilometre descent before another 1.5 kilometre climb of an average of about 7% with parts at 9%, so quite steep. Really, really hard. It's the kind of roads that really break the rhythm. Lots of braking. It's technical. There's turns. We know it's wet. Then another very short descent before the final rise up to the top of 6.4, and then we have the plunge down to the finish. And from the highest point of this climb, and that is called the Alto Las Ermitas, we have 15.6 kilometres downhill, and the last 4 or 5 Ks is flat to the run into the line.
Well, I hope Constantin has got his TT head on. He certainly looks like he has on this plateau, and he doesn't mind rolling terrain either. That's the worry, and you can see the pace that's being instilled onto the chasers at the moment. 22 seconds is the gap. He's actually holding it. Now, he's a pretty handy descender for a big man as well. Just watch him, because he could TT to the line. This could be a bit of a shock. He could have mugged the field here and take a break. Back in a moment. Through the light and shade being thrown up by the trees here. And you can see in some of the shaded sections, the road is still damp. Thankfully, it's not wet today. There was a big chance of rain. No race radios in a 2.1 race, we remind everybody, and that means that the pack aren't thoroughly aware of how far up the road this man is. And so sinuous is the descent that he's on at the moment that he's holding an 18-second gap. Now, if he maintains that into town and stays out of sight, I guess anything could happen, because this is a long descent and it brings him almost home.
It is at the highest point. Well, he's still got a little bit of a descent, then another climb. As one of the Gazprom riders has a puncture.
Person off.
Just on the right-hand side, but fantastic. I don't know, a timed attack by Sitsov. Remember, back in 2011, 2013, he's the Belarusian time trial champion. He's also won stages of the Giro d'Italia in the past, so he knows himself extremely well. And again, as the road sort of snakes round to the left, he can afford himself a bit of a glance over his shoulder, see where the peloton are. He's managed to pull out another couple of seconds, and this is where the road pitches up again before dropping down and then pitching up finally.
Better viewer, in fact, I'm just retweeting it now. Thank you very much. They've just shown us a loop which may have caused a bit of confusion, and maybe they would have stripped it out if there had been rain. They haven't, and he's on it now. It's a strange one. It's 7.6 kilometers. You saw him take a very, very long, sort of sinuous turn to get onto it. So there's a strange loop halfway down the descent, which includes the climb, and then he starts descending again. He'll come back almost to the point that he left the road. It's a difference of only about 20 meters when he rejoins. But yeah, they've got this long sort of tongue, if you like, that they're going licked up the mountain. 8.1 kilometers to go. 21 seconds he's got now. When do we start believing?
Well, you start believing. I think he needs to get over this last section. It depends on how the other riders, how the other teams start to attack the last part of this climb. Again, there is a section that he'll be on in very, very short. I think he might be on it now. It's a section of about 1.2 Ks of an average of 7.1%. It tops out at 9%. He's on it now. It's very, very difficult indeed. Then there's a little lull, and then a slight rise to the line. Then he can start believing, I think, when he hits the descent. He's an accomplished descender, ridden many Grand Tours over the years, and he's ideally positioned. He can pick his line and choose his way down the descent.
This is a fantastic piece of individual endeavour from Konstantin Sitsov. He, of course, left Team Sky, was picked up by our erstwhile co-commentator Brian Smith, who signed him into Dimension Data, a team that Brian general manages, and what a fantastic pick he certainly was. He's got a massive engine, he's got a lot of talent, he can time trial, and you kind of suspect that certain members of bigger teams generally tend to get smothered within a cross-section of uber talent. And it's really nice for these guys to actually just, no disrespect at all, but just to sort of take a step back, maybe make a change, and then be able to shine brightly and have their moments.
It's the way the sport is, and Team Sky, you know, have the financial muscle to bring in a lot of good riders, and because they have every team that they field, there's no filler at all, there's no slack, and of course, because of that, you know, it's very, very difficult to move away from the role of domestique, and for many years he's been Richie Port. So moving to another team, it just gives you a little bit of freedom, and from speaking to Brian, he wants to give riders opportunities to attack, to race a little bit differently. It doesn't mean his time at Team Sky was necessarily a bad thing at all. He had a role which he did very well, and in fact he's moved on and now has opportunities. But what he's doing, he knows how Team Sky ride, he's used that to his advantage, and he's a remarkable time trialist. But the attacks are coming. I think it's Lotto Soudal.
It's not 22 seconds, I can tell you that much. So they, our local graphics people, I don't know, I think some thumbs need to be broken later on.
It's a handful of seconds now, isn't it?
It is a handful of seconds. There we are. Yes, he's on the descent though, and he is still just momentarily out of sight on occasion, but frankly it's done for the likes of Caruso, who've been part of the push up this incline, and we'll just see who's on the chase at the moment. Don't be surprised if it's suddenly you find out that it's Philippe Gilbert who's managed to take it on. It's his kind of terrain, he'd love this. I think he'd probably prefer a bit of an uphill kick finish, but nonetheless, once you've dealt with the inclines that we're dealing with here, it's about that run in and handling your descent, which we know Switzer can do. You've got to be good at it. Valverde's pretty handy in this kind of environment as well. Don't be surprised if you see the Spanish champion popping out. It could be a very selective sprint, this, couldn't it?
It could be. Well, again, this is where the road's pitched up again. You can just see the lead group just behind. Probably got about 10 or 12 seconds. The gap being foreshortened. Definitely a Tinkoff-Saxo look to be in the mix at the front there. But Sitsov believing in just about 500 metres time, or 600 metres time, there'll be the drop-off, and then the descent properly starts.
Road surface changes again, but one thing is a constant, and it's Konstantin. 16.4 to go. Matt wincing with that one, but this man seems to be able to stay in control now. It's Lotto Soudal who's on the chase here.
And it looks, again, they've got so many riders who would revel in this sort of terrain. Maxime Montfort, Jelle van der Naert, Tim Wellens, Tosh van der Sande, all riders who can climb extremely well on the shorter climbs. Difficult to pick it out. It could be Tim Wellens, but
I'm
again,
going for Wellens. Yeah, I think it is him, but that's our guesswork from this kind of distance. 16.1 kilometres to go, though. A lot of pace still about Switzer. He may well have an ally here, and a strong one.
Possibly, but again, what do you have to think of here? If you look over the last couple of years, the issues we've had with motorbikes, very difficult for the Cameron motorbikes to get in between the riders, which is an extremely sensible thing. Riders' safety must be paramount. It looks as if there's been another crash on the left-hand side. That looks like Hugh Carthy, the British rider riding on the Caja Rural team, has been detached off the back. But as you can see, lots of changes of road surface, wet and dry. Sitsov is in the place to be at the moment.
He certainly is. So 15.7 to go before we get home. How much downhill has he still got? Still a reasonable amount. The flattish section, we need to talk about our approach to the line today, and it's no easy meet, I can tell you that much, for these guys to feast upon. Very difficult indeed. In fact, it's going to be pacey at the line, a nasty one with a sort of a river swamp area. They'll forgive me. When you get to about 650 metres to go, we've got a quarter turn on a roundabout before we head for the line in Cordoba along the bank side of the Rio Guadalquivir, or something like that. 15 to go, though. He's at pace and he can maintain this.
I'm glad you pronounced that and not me. Well done, Carlton. No, but he's still got a good lead. And again, the motorbike just focusing on this ride because it's too dangerous for the motorbikes, especially on these the roads with that changing road surface, wet and dry. It's the safest place to get to be. But he's descending very well at the moment. He affords himself.
Everyone back together, the Eurosport family, 11.6 kilometres to go. What a fantastic effort has been engaged by Tim Wellens. Constantine Switzer was caught. There's a very long line of riders coming down the mountain here, and believe me, Valverde has not won this race on 3 separate occasions without having an option on a day such as this.
He's certainly very hungry. He's just trying to get across to the Flying Belgian. That's that very distinctive aero tuck that Tim Wellens gets into. Has his forearms draped over the handlebars. Again, not something I'd advise on a wet descent, but he's a very, very good bike handler indeed. And as the road just starts to open up a little bit, I think Valverde has just made contact. There's still looks like Sitsov in the mix, and I've also seen Sylvain Chavanel there as well.
Chavanel is in the frame for Direct Energy in the black with a gold rainbow, well, you know, hoop, on the jersey. We'll see if the veteran Frenchman can actually join the fun here today. I haven't seen too much of Philippe Gilbert, but BMC looked lively earlier on. He is in the mix, but it's Danny Moreno that's being called here as the man who's bridged over, and it is indeed him. Apologies for that, but Valverde is on the chasers just behind and was there indeed. We said he got a wingman. It's Moreno that's gone up to the fore to do the pacing, and it's Tim Wellens who still line through with 10 to go. Pace most certainly will be up, but it looks like we might have a glory group of about 10 or 12 to play with here, because the long line has snapped on the descent due to the pace.
It certainly has. Maybe if you're looking at the gap behind, I can just about see there's probably about 15 riders in that front group. We're just on the outskirts of Cordoba now. Just 9.5 kilometers to go. This is the question is now, will this lead group work together? Because there's riders not too far behind who will get a bit between the teeth. They'll see that it's a gap that they can get across. I think we'll see this group swell. I don't think we'll see too much cohesion.
I think we've got TJ Van Garderen and Philippe Gilbert here for BMC, plus another, possibly Brent Buchwald of the American, in a trio. What a fantastic piece of firepower they've got. And so they're all joining the fun. Look at this. Well, have a bit of energy, why don't you?
Indeed, so a bit of direct energy there. That's Sylvain Chavanel in that the black and the red kit. Looks like he's actually wearing a pair of trainers, but I can assure you they are cycling shoes, a retro style. But there you go, Sylvain Chavanel in on third wheel there. riding extremely well already this season. He's got a win under his
and
belt.
he's going for it. Sylvain Chavanel's lit it up. He's just decided to go past Damiano Caruso for BMC. Camera's just missed it now, I'm afraid. He's just gone out the top of your screen, but this is fantastic. Philippe Gilbert knows that this is an important moment as well. TJ Van Garderen also very much involved with possibilities today, but great to see Chavanel just grasping the nettle there and having a go and saying, look, I'm still here, I'm still a danger, very much so, on the form he's on at the moment.
Well, he's great. He's such an aggressive rider, so tenacious, and again, he will attack on any sort of terrain. Sometimes he's a little bit foolhardy, but I love the spirited way in which he rides. But now it's the former Olympic champion. You can tell by the golden shoes, it's Sammy Sanchez. Brett Buckwalter is also there for BMC in the red and black.
It is the big American that's also very much in the frame, and his old golden shoes himself, Sammy Sanchez, that noses to the fore. My goodness, this is getting very, very selective. Sky also with options today.
It looks like Pouls is in there. Definitely a couple of riders from Team Sky. It does look as if one of the riders from Cofidis has managed to infiltrate this group. Here. But Swifty's there. Great ride by Swifty. He can pull off this sort of win. Look at the Tour of Basque Country back in 2014. He managed to crest one of the climbs with an elite group of about 20 or 30 Arula punchers and climbers. Danny Navarro is the rider there
Fabio
from Cofidis.
Fellini's made it as well. Now
He's
that's
quick.
A massive one. He's a super sprinter. He's got over the hills. Fellini from Trek Factory Racing in the white shoulders. What an option they've got today. Well, you can't pick it, quite frankly. Not at the moment anyway, as Brett Buckwalter just engages the pace, and now they know this is going to be a selective punch-up, and I suggest Fabio Fellini is possibly the call right now. My goodness. And who else has joined the fun? Navarro from Cofidis did make it over. No sign of Buhani though, but Fellini for Trek Sagafredo, that's not a bad call at all.
It isn't at all. But because of the strength in numbers in this group for BNC, that's why we're seeing Brent Bunkwater be happy to ride on the front. Sammy Sanchez is just moving round, but Philippe Gilbert significantly is. They're a great sprinter from a small group. Also in the mix is Rafa Majka of Tinkoff Saxo.
Wow. So still the pace being kept up, wants to keep it selective, and Danny Moreno is engaging that pace on behalf of those around him. Sammy Sanchez chasing him hard, as you can see, in a big move as well for one of the IAM Cycling. Has David Tanner, the Aussie, made it up here for IAM Cycling? If he has, he's in a great place at the moment. There we are, just looking back, Danny Bernati, and he's not in the best place at the moment, I'm afraid.
He's not. It looks like that was the second moto group, but this group is starting to work particularly well. 3 riders from Team Sky are in there. Be interesting if we could just identify the rider from IAM Cycling. Look at the climbers they've got on that team. Martin Elmiger, Matthias Frank, potentially Oliver Zog, the Swiss rider, a good climber. But Sammy Sanchez now drives this group clear. Second group, or the group containing the race leader, is now at 20 seconds.
Well, they're all looking round just to see who's part of the party, quite frankly. But Swifty's got a great chance here. Ben Swift from Team Sky. Here comes Valverde coming through, just nosing ahead of Ben Swift. Ben Swift just looks like he's... is he going to lead in Wout Poels and try and just keep him safe in a moment such as this? We'll wait and see. Plenty of options then for all and sundry, and Switzu's still within this mix, which is great news for him. 5.1 to go. Let's tell you how it pans out, shall we? Just about 1.5K, so 1,500 meters to go. They come into the Constitution Plaza. They'll take a right-hander. They come into the sort of a benign right-hander as they come into it. Then a 90-degree, which will take them down the park, essentially. A lot of greenery either side. Then at the Flamme Rouge, the road gently bends to the left. And then with 650 meters to go is the crucial roundabout. They take a quarter of it. So they'll go to the right-hand side of the road in order to make the left-hand turn and give themselves the biggest face for it. Then it's that straight run to the line. So watch out for the Flamme Rouge. It introduces about 200 meters before we get to that roundabout. Once we've dealt with that, then it's all hell let loose for the line.
Well, the group is swelling in size. Another splinter group has managed to get back in contact. Look how big the group is now, at 35, 40 riders in the mix. The rider definitely there from Yam Cycling is Rito Hollenstein. But now the attacks are starting.
They are starting. I think Valetti might well be in this for Southeast Venezuela as well. If he is, then he's got an option today. 3.6 to go. Pick your options, pick your route through, and make sure you make it count. Big roundabout on the approach, still waiting for that final roundabout with 6:50 to go. But this is now become a group with many more options.
It looks like it's Hollenstein from Yam Cycling, joined by one of the riders from Team Sky, but Movistar are not going to let this one go. 3.3 kilometers to go. I'd reckon about 40 riders in that group. It looks like it's all going to come back together. Currently, Movistar looking around, just double-checking to see who's in the group. This is going to be absolutely fascinating as they turn left onto the Avenue del Aeroporto.
There we are, 3 kilometers to go then. This will be a straight line until they get to about 1.5 to go. So a long, long look for them now. And indeed to look around and see who's within the gang. No close-up shots for you, I'm afraid. So we are relying on our other senses. Getting back into this is the leader, I've got to tell you. Bernati has made it back in. The red jersey is there. Bernati has made his way back to this group. So it was a secondary group, and they've managed to reassemble themselves. Now, has Buhani got in here? I haven't seen him yet. If he has chance to make amends for a terrible lead in yesterday, I think that's him. I think Buhani is in here, as well as Deli Bernati. So all bets are off. Bernati is here with his teammates around him. You can see the red leader's jersey just bedded in to the yellow of Tinkoff Saxo, dead centre of screen.
This has a little bit of a kind of Milan San Remo sort of feel about it. We've got some very, very good Poncho Rulo sprinters in the mix. Fantastic riding, some determined riding and teamwork again from Tinkoff Saxo to get Bernati back in the mix. Could it be double stage wins for the Italian in the red jersey? Team Sky take it up, 2.1 to go.
Well, he's worked for it, man. If he does get there, then he'll certainly deserve it. 2 to go then. As you can see, we're just about to take this bend. It brings them into the Plaza de Constitution. That's the benign bend I was telling you about. And then they'll take a more focused one. Ticker's just slightly out, by the way. They make the big turn. Now, the Flamme Rouge beckons. It's a 6 and 8 lane highway that we're dealing with at the moment. And it is, of course, Kirienka that's just laying it on the line for Team Sky at the moment, trying to keep the hurt on and wear out some of the quick men. But Bernati has played a great game here today. He hasn't burnt himself. He's not overly chased down. He's waited for his chance to get reassembled, and the man in the red leader's jersey is here.
And another rider in the red jersey of Cofidis on the wheel of Bernati is Nasser Bouhanni of France. He hasn't had a win this year. He desperately wants one. He got it wrong yesterday. He's in prime position at the moment. A kilometre to go.
Well, it's all about that final roundabout, but I believe that Bouhanni has now got a chance to assemble himself. Haven't seen the beard of Soupé, his favoured final lead-out man. I know that Bozic was caught out on the climb and was not comfortable at all. And look at them, they're rocking and rolling with it at the moment. Everyone's knocking back, saving something for this final push for the line.
They certainly are. It's lots of looking around. They're leaving it very late. One of the riders from it's Dimension Data going on the inside.
Bradley, I believe, that's gone off here. Not a pure sprinter, but out of a group. He'll take a cheeky one if he can possibly get it, but I think he's not going to be favoured. Sylvester Schmidt, I think it is, that's got on his back for Spelly Polkovici and going for it. And Valverde lights it up, but he's dragging only Bouhanni into the frame now. The final is approaching us right now over the cobbles. It's surely got to be Bouhanni, and it certainly is. Wow, there we are. Bouhanni was not to be denied for a second time in a row. He got it very wrong yesterday on a roundabout. Took a wrong line. Bouhanni, though, makes sure this time by, and that, believe me, will be something of a relief to a man who's been short of wins. Good run.
Well, the boxer punches the air with delight, and he let out a big cry as well. Big relief for Nasser Bouhanni and his Cofidis team. Great ride, perfect final. He had a couple of teammates with him who looked after him, but he sat on the wheel of Bernati and came around very late, only about 150 metres to go, but that was enough. Nobody could come by. I think it was Feline of Trek Sigafredo who pushed him very close. We'll get confirmation of the result. Big relief for Nasser Bouhanni. Fantastic win.
Well, some big gaps as well today because of the climb that we've been dealing with. Entertaining day nonetheless. a little bit of added frisson at the very last.
Yeah, it was, I think, a great ride here. I mean, it was only about 100 metres to 150 metres to go. The Bouhanni, less than that, actually hit the line. And a teammate of his manages to get up there as well. I think Ben Swift from Team Sky, also in the mix there, manages to get third place. So great riding by Cofidis. Quite a sizable group there at the end, but no mistake at all. Bouhanni takes the day.
Well, we'll wait for official confirmation. As you can see, the rain just starting to let itself be known here in Cordoba. This is the Calafora, by the way. There is Dani Bennati. Didn't have, I think, what it took at the end. Maybe just thought I could save myself for later in this race, but I think it may well be farewell to the jersey on countback. We'll see in terms of positioning. Bouhanni yesterday finished in 6th place, so it depends on where Bennati finished today. And we'll work out who's going to be wearing that jersey tomorrow, but I suggest it may well be Bouhanni himself, courtesy of 2 decent finishes, of course, one including today's victory.
Yeah, as I say, there's no time bonuses in this race. We've got the TT the day after tomorrow, and then obviously the final mountaintop finish, which will definitely split things up GC-wise. So as you say, Carl, definitely will be on countback, but I think it will be tight. I think the Italian, well, there's the confirmation of the result.
Stage 2, Bouhanni takes it ahead of Fellini. Ben Swift in 3rd place. Christophe Laporte and Ray Crader. Not sure about that, actually. Yes, now I am. Fabio Fellini, runner-up, Ben Swift in 3rd place. But winner on the day, no doubt about it. Nasser Bouhanni gets it right at last.
It's such a relief to get on the score sheet, basically, especially for the sprinters. All of the main sprinters are gradually racking up the wins, and that was a definite relief. Although we're only in the early mid-February, it's so important for the sprinters to get things off to a positive start, get the morale in the team, and the belief from the teammates as well. Important win there for Nasser Bouhanni.
Lovely garden of the Christian Kings there. Do you like a cypress tree?
I do like a walled garden.
Here's your standings then. Bouhanni yesterday on countback after finishing 6th yesterday is indeed our leader. We had a bit of a mishmash there. That's the 6, 7, 8 finishing today stage standings, but we also, I believe, Bouhanni is now our overall leader as well. Sorry for the confusion there on that graphic. While we're spooling through and just seeing some of the others who were involved in the chase back, Philippe Gilbert finishing 20th today. I think it was Elevated Sprint Company, not really his thing. It would have been his if there had been a kick-up at the end, but sadly not. Looks like a square for some prancing horses there, Matt. Will you be going down later?
I might have a little look around.
Another look then at the approach. Always good to see a roll of the dice. And Dimension Data have been so lively, haven't they?
Well, they're unafraid. They're very, very happy to try and attack, shake things up a little bit, not sit back. And I think that's a wonderful spirit, and I love their way of riding. Again, it certainly livens up the race. I'm looking forward to seeing them in action for the rest of the year. They've had a handful of victories already, but today it was all about the man in red, Nasser Bouhanni.
So Nasser Bouhanni times it right. Yesterday he had all the lead-out men in line. Unfortunately, he didn't hold his through a final roundabout. This time, he got it right. Good effort. Fellini finishing in 2nd place here today, ahead of Ben Swift of Team Sky. I think we're finally going to get our overall as we look at the long view of Cordoba. It's a very beautiful place, by the way.
Absolutely gorgeous, isn't it? Absolutely stunning. But again, looking at the count there, I don't think Bennati was just outside the top 15, I think. So looking at the regulations, it will go back to the point score, as it were, on countback. And I've no doubt that Bouhanni will be in red tomorrow.
I always wondered, you know, who goes for a canoe on a cycling day? There's always one, isn't there?
I wouldn't really fancy canoeing in this weather as
No,
well,
no.
to be honest with you, even with a wetsuit on.
And it's a slow-running freshwater river as well, so, you know, if mozzies are your friends, then it's a great thing to do, but they're not mine. Well, we are awaiting our overall classification. I assume that we are going to be provided with it, but if not, then we will take our leave and look forward to your company tomorrow. We are heading to Padul. Yeah. Talking about canoers. See what I did there? 157.9 kilometers to go. It will be at the start, and some proper climbs along the way. A lot of plateaus, a lot of time to sort it out, and potential skirmishes late on.